Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. I have a theory. I think it's the cost of gasoline. People have to drive. Yeah. Anyway. Must have been something I said last time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. What is the verse? Is it 13? Okay. Oh, can you make sure all the doors are closed? Thanks, Guru. On this 11th day of April 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 3 entitled Karma Yoga, text number 13, top of page 151. Yagya Shishtashinak Santo Muchyante Sarvakil Bishai Bunjate Te Tu Agam Papa Ye Pachanti Atmakaranat Yagnyashishtashinak Santo Muchyante Sarvakil Bishai Bunjate Te Tvagam Papa Ye Pachantyatmakaranat Yagnyashishtashinak Santo Muchyante Sarvakil Bishai Bunjate Te Tvagam Papa Ye Pachantyatmakaranat Yagnyashishtashinak Santo Muchyante Sarvakil Bishai Bunjate Te Tvagam Papa Ye Pachantyatmakaranat Yagnyashishtashinak Santo Muchyante Sarvakil Bishai Bunjate Te Tvagam Papa Ye Pachantyatmakaranat Yagnyashishtashinak Santo Muchyante Sarvakil Bishai Bunjate Te Tvagam Papa Ye Pachantyatmakaranat. Yagya Shishta, of food taken after performance of yagya. Ashinaha, eaters. Santaha, the devotees. Muchyante, get relief. Sarva, all kinds of. Kilbishai, from sins. Bunjate, enjoy. Te, they, too, but. Agam, grievous sins. Papai, apapa, sinners. Ye, who, pachanti, prepare food. Atmakaranat, for sense enjoyment. Translation. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. Purport. The devotees of the Supreme Lord, or the persons who are in Krishna consciousness, are called santas, and they are always in love with the Lord as it is described in the Brahma Samhita 538. Premanjanat chudita bhakti vilochanena santak sadaiva didiyeshu vilokayanti. The santas, being always in a compact of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, the giver of all pleasures, or Mukunda, the giver of liberation, or Krishna, the all-attractive person, cannot accept anything without first offering it to the Supreme Person. Therefore, such devotees always perform yagyas in different modes of devotional service, such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smadanam, Archanam, etc. And these performances of yagyas keep them always aloof from all kinds of contamination of sinful association in the material world. Others who prepare food for self or sense gratification are not only thieves but also the eaters of all kinds of sins. How can a person be happy if he is both a thief and sinful? It is not possible. Therefore, in order for people to become happy in all respects, they must be taught to perform the easy process of Sankirtan Yagya in full Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, there can be no peace or happiness in the world. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Prabhu, I think you're the one who's performed the biggest sacrifice here. You've actually driven here, haven't you? Yes. I think it's the price of gas that is retarding people not coming. But others they live close by, they just walked, or they just came.
Prabhu, it's more because of the weather today.
Oh, the weather? Threatening rain.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. We'll find out tomorrow. Okay, online? You don't have to go anywhere. It's free. Hare Krishna. Okay, this is a famous verse because this is the verse that talks about prasadam. This is why we offer everything to Krishna. This word shishta means a remnant, because they could take the remnants of what Krishna's already eaten. There's a little story I have to tell about this verse. When I was in New York, I spent a year and a half in that famous building, 55th Street building. So when the Christmas marathon would come around, we'd all go out on the subways and distribute books or magazines and collect Lakshmi. So they had to get permission. We had to prove that this is part of our religion. And this is the verse. It's Christmas time, and we're the Santas, Santa Claus. It's the same word. And this, we're called Santas, persons who are in Krishna consciousness. They're always in love with this Lord. So people could relate to that, and they gave us a permit to go on the subways. One day I did over $300. Distributed many pamphlets, magazines. Anyway, neither here nor there. So this is part of this whole concept of yajna. And it's a yajna. It's not a very difficult yajna, but it's a yajna to offer everything that you're going to eat, to have this system of preparing it with Krishna in mind. And the whole purpose of it, about this particular yajna, is to recognize that Krishna is the source of everything and he's the ultimate enjoyer. As we learn at the end of the 5th chapter, the famous verse, the peace formula, I believe over the months and years as we go through, we'll learn these shlokas. Bhoktaram yajita basam, sarva loka maheshwaram, suridam sarva bhutanam, gyatpa mam shantim richati. How can there be any happiness without peace? So this verse tells you how you can actually have peace, which is the foundation of happiness. We have to recognize Krishna as the actual enjoyer of all yajnas and sacrifice. Bhoktanam yajna tapasam. That he is the Lord of all worlds, sarva loka maheshwaram, and that he is the indwelling best friend of everybody. Sarva loka suridam sarva bhutanam. This word surit is an important word. There's different kinds of friends that you can have. Just like we have in English, you can have a dearest friend, you can have a bosom buddy, you can have an associate, you can have an acquaintance, like that. So in Sanskrit, you have the same thing. A bandhu is a friend. A sakha is another kind of friend. But a surit is someone who's close to your heart, suhrit, and who's your ever well-wisher. Prabhupada would sign all of his correspondence, your ever well-wisher. Which means that Krishna never gives up on us. He never gives up on us. We may be in some lower species, we're in some ant body, some dog body, cat body, whatever, but he's still with us, right there in the heart, as the super soul, guiding us what to do and how to live in this particular body. You know, he's not entangled, but he's giving us the intelligence of how to live and reminding us. So, but he's always waiting till we get back to the human form and we can actually understand who we are and reform our mentality, rebellious mentality against him. This is why we're here, right? And so, unlike, your best friend who, if you keep, going to the bar and drinking too much and he has to come and pick you up and eventually he says, all right, I'm through with him. Too much. I don't have time, So, but Krishna never gives up. So they surit. So this yajna shishta is Krishna's not hungry. He has millions of Lakshmis preparing the most delectable dishes in the spiritual world. But what he's looking for is for us to develop a relationship of love for Him. This is the only way out of this material world, for us to become purified through the process of bhakti and reawaken our original nature, which is to be loving servants of Krishna and taking our pleasure in seeing Him happy by our service. So this is part of it. It's a big part of it, is to offer the food with reverence and love, as he says in the 9th chapter famously, Pattam Pushpam Palam Toyam Yome Bhakta Priyachati, that those who offer me even a little fruit, a flower, water or milk, in other words, simple food stuff, something you can get anywhere, but they do it with love and devotion. I accept, I eat it. He says, I eat that. So what is he? He's not that he's hungry, but he's hungry for the food stuff, but he's hungry for the love, for the devotion. This is part of the, there's a statement in the Upanishads, Raso Vaisa. Raso Vaisa, which means the Lord is made of rasa. In other words, He lives for that. Why expand Himself in all of these countless living entities, so that He can there be a relationship of love. This is what gives Him happiness. And this is what gives us happiness in the material world too, in our perverted reflection type of way, right? We try to establish these friends and, of course, lovers and husband, wife, children, because we want to have a relationship. The Prabhupada tells in a lecture I recently heard, a little child, a 3-year-old child comes and gives his father an apple or gives him something that was cooked by the mother, Dad, this is really good, taste it. So the father bought it, he's the one who was responsible for it. But because the child is expressing love for the father in that way, he says, oh, very nice, you take it. And he's enjoying the rasa. It's a perverted rasa, but it's pleasurable in its own way. What's the problem with the material rasas? Is that they come to an end, and they're never of the pure nature that we have in the spiritual world. There may seem to be some love there, but there's really some motive behind it, right? Somebody's trying to cheat you or whatever, And the real trade always comes to an end. That eventually the kid grows up, goes away, leaves his own life or whatever. The wife leaves or dies, the husband leaves or dies, till death do us part. You recognize that when you get married, right? So what happens to the rasa? It's finished. It's not eternal. It's not completely fulfilling. So, as Prabhupada in his famous phrase, perverted reflection. It's a reflection that we take to be the real thing. So this Yagya Shishta, we're on page 151, by the way. On the other hand, those who don't recognize the Lord as the source of the foodstuffs, as the one who is the real enjoyer, they simply cook for themselves alone. That's sinful. Agam papa, yepachanchatmakaranat. Simply cooking for oneself. So what to speak of if you simply disregard the rules and regulations for what kind of foodstuff to eat, and you eating meat and all these other kinds of things? It's just horrible. The eating can be a tremendously sinful activity that just causes you tremendous suffering in the future. So as soon as you are in this mood, or you understand from authorities and from the Shastra what it means to offer your food and what kinds of food, then you're absolved. You're not going to offer unofferable foodstuffs because Krishna won't eat it. He says, I'll eat these categories. Patram, pushpam, palam toyam. So, you understand. And so that's, this is all part of this chapter, Karma Yoga, which is very much concerned with not incurring any new karma and getting rid of the old karma. We have the karma which is prarabdha karma, which is actually we're suffering or enjoying right now, and the aprarabdha karma, which is waiting in stock to come, and gradually it may come in the next life. It will determine what kind of next life we have if we don't practice this process of devotional service. We really don't, it's good to really study this and hear how fortunate you are just to practice the rudiments of Krishna consciousness, just to begin chanting Hare Krishna, coming to class, reforming your diet, is such a auspicious. Auspicious means that which brings good fortune or is a manifestation of good fortune. Because once you really understand and believe that this is one life and it's practically infinite series of lives in which we were in ignorance and we performed all kinds of activities which are giving us good things now or bad things now, things which are painful. You realize the value of eradicating all that karma. And even the so-called good karma isn't good, because it means, okay, I gave charity this lifetime to help starving kids. Okay, that's good. But that means in your next life you got to come back. It's not transcendental activity. It's good activity, motor good. So you have to come back to reap the results. You know, it means that, oh, okay, I get a good birth and this and that, but you're still in the material world, you see. So devotees want to get rid of all the karma, so-called good and so-called bad, and simply live a life of naishkarmya. Naishkarmya. You may remember at the beginning of this chapter, Krishna says, I forget the Sanskrit exactly, but he says, not simply by not acting can you enjoy the fruits of naishkarmya. Naishkarmya is what devotees do. When they're acting in Krishna consciousness, they're not getting any karma. There's no good or bad karma. The results of it are being tallied in the spiritual world. You're paving your way to go back to Godhead. It may be the first steps. It may be in the middle of the process, whatever it is. But it's activity that has no material reaction. That's the point, because it's not fruitive. You're not actually the doer, meaning that the impetus for the action is not coming from you. You don't have any reason to perform it. You're getting it from higher authority, from Krishna or through his representative, the spiritual master. He's saying, he or she is saying, do it this way, do that way, and that will be pleasing to Krishna, because it's based on the Shastra. You may not know why or what you're doing. Getting up early, I really have to get up early. You join the ashram, 3:30, 4 o'clock. The first day you join, it's the middle of the night. What is this? No, this is the time. It's auspicious. And so when you actually do that, then you're getting free of bad habits, and you're opening up this morning time where it's so powerful to perform spiritual activity. Chanting, and it's just auspicious. That's why it's called Mangala Arati. So the idea is that we're meant to act in this naishkarmya mood all the time, and the only way to do that is to always, and this is a high standard that we aim for, to always be acting on the basis of Krishna's desire. There's this wonderful verse. There's a verse in the 9th chapter that kind of encapsulates this, but then there's one in the 11th canto that kind of expands on it and gives. It says, Yat karoshi, yat ashnasi, yat jurosi, dadasi, yat tapassasi kauntaya, mutkurushvamaraparam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away, whatever you offer, do it as a sacrifice for me. Do it for me. You see? Which is a high standard. But in the 11th canto, the 9 Yogendras are speaking to Maharaj Nimi, and one of the verses there is, it says, Kayena vacha manasendriyava buddhyatmanava anusata svabhavad karodi yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayetat. Narayan, I mean, this is for you, Narayan. This is for you, Krishna. Whatever you do, imagine living this life. This is the life of a pure devotee. Whatever you do with your body, with your voice, with your senses, with your mind, with your intelligence, whatever you have, you do and you're conscious of, this is an offering to you, this is an offering to you. We could see that with Prabhupada, he wouldn't just answer the phone. He would answer the phone in such a way that you could see, oh, this is part of the service. Whatever is going on that phone is for glorification of Krishna. This is an activity. And every step, I'm not just walking from here to there. I'm on a mission for Krishna. Okay, I'm going to take prasadam, but I'm taking prasadam. That's also a sacrament. Give the body strength so I can serve for Krishna. To actually be in that mentality that the life, airs, everything is dedicated moment to moment to Krishna. That's pure devotion. And you can see how when you're just trying to imagine. I have to try to imagine if you're moment to moment, you're feeling this attraction for Krishna, this love for Krishna. It says, okay, this is what Krishna wants me to do now. I'm doing it for his pleasure. And he's becoming happy. You're remembering him. You're remembering the form, and you're remembering the smile. Then everything becomes part of the loving relationship. Whereas on the material side, she's at work, you're at work, and your relationship is now with your boss and her boss, and that rasa is suspended. It's not happening now. You can't say, oh, whatever I'm doing now is an act of love for my lover. No, doesn't work like that. So this is a perverted world. So this is a famous verse about prasadam, why and how and if you don't do this, you're eating sin. If you eat boga, if you don't care, and you're entangled, you can get very much entangled through food. And next couple of verses, we're going to learn why, the rationale behind this verse. Okay, if there's no comments or questions, let's go on. Text 14. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyaran sambhavaha yagyan bhavati parjanyo yagya karma samudbhavaha. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna or sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Purport. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great commentator on the Bhagavad Gita, writes as follows. We should also remember that this book is dedicated to Baladev Vidyabhushan because he used his commentary throughout. Okay, here we go. Ye indra jangataya vastitam yagyam sarveshwaram vishnum abhyarcha tatchesham ashnanti tena taddeha yatram sampadayanti te santaha sarveshwarasya yagya purushasya bhakta sarvakil vishaya anadi kala vividhaya atmanubhava pratibandhikaya nikilai papa vimuchante. The Supreme Lord, who is known as the Yajna Purush, or the personal beneficiary of all sacrifices, is the master of all the demigods, who serve him as the different limbs of the body serve the whole. Demigods like Indra, Chandra, and Varuna are appointed officers who manage material affairs. And the Vedas direct sacrifices to satisfy these demigods so that they may be pleased to supply air, light, and water sufficiently to produce food grains. When Lord Krishna is worshipped, the demigods, who are different limbs of the Lord, are also automatically worshipped. Therefore, there is no separate need to worship the demigods. For this reason, the devotees of the Lord who are in Krishna consciousness offer food to Krishna and then eat, a process which nourishes the body spiritually. By such action, not only are past sinful reactions in the body vanquished, but the body becomes immunized to all contamination of material nature. When there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protects a person from the attack of such an epidemic. Similarly, food offered to Lord Vishnu and then taken by us makes us sufficiently resistant to material affection. And one who is accustomed to this practice is called a devotee of the Lord. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness who eats only food offered to Krishna can counteract all reactions of past material infections, which are impediments to the progress of self-realization. On the other hand, one who does not do so continues to increase the volume of sinful action, and this prepares the next body to resemble hogs and dogs, to suffer the resultant reactions of all sins. The material world is full of contaminations, and one who is immunized by accepting prasadam of the Lord, food offered to Vishnu, is saved from the attack, whereas one who does not do so becomes subjected to contamination. Food grains or vegetables are factually eatables. The human being eats different kinds of food grains, vegetables, fruits, etc., and the animals eat the refuse of the food grains and vegetables, grass, plants, etc. Human beings who are accustomed to eating meat and flesh must also depend on the production of vegetation in order to eat the animals. Therefore, ultimately, we have to depend on the production of the field and not on the production of big factories. The field production is due to sufficient rain from the sky, and such rains are controlled by demigods like Indra, the sun, moon, etc., and they are all servants of the Lord. The Lord can be satisfied by sacrifices. Therefore, one who cannot perform them will find himself in scarcity. That is the law of nature. Yajna, specifically the Sankirtan Yajna prescribed for this age, must therefore be performed to save us at least from scarcity of food supply. Hare Krishna. Okay. So this verse goes with the next verse, as we'll see. But the basic principles are clearly kind of obvious. Certainly, annad bhavanti bhutani, that all living beings subsist on food grains. Anna means food in general, but it also just means grains, as Prabhupada is emphasizing in the purport, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna. Sacrificing yajna is born of prescribed duties. Well, people don't accept that rain is produced from yajna. They think it's produced from clouds. So all we have to do is seed the clouds, or whatever, and then it'll come. But we know that sometimes rain doesn't come, or it comes too much, especially now with climate change. Or there's a war, and suddenly there's a big food shortage, because Ukraine and Russia are huge exporters of wheat, but now there's a war, and so that's going to stop. It has stopped, and food is already going up here, but in many parts of the world they really depend on that. So, and the basic root of all the problem is that there are not the sacrifices being performed, and the climate has changed. And oftentimes, like here, we're in a drought situation here because of all of the ways in which they've redirected the water, like the Colorado River. We're okay here for now, but ultimately rain has to come. Or around here, snow, not here, but upstate and in the mountains, so that the snowpack is ready and it runs off, and that's how we live here. This is a desert area. So people forget that. Through the technology, we think we've conquered nature. But nature always wins, ultimately. You can't conquer nature, right? Or plastics. I remember before I joined, there was a movie. It was a famous movie where one of the lines is, "My son, if here's how you can get rich. Just remember this one word: plastics. Plastics. This is where you should invest your money." So everyone is invested in plastic. And look what's happened. We all have plastic and microplastics coursing through our veins now. You probably read about that. And it's a horrible pollutant. There's nothing they can do about it. It's raining plastic. Yeah. So this is what happens when we forget God and think that we can just manipulate nature and in this way enjoy. Ultimately, it comes raining down. A hard rain is going to fall. That hard rain, there's a song. You're not so familiar with Bob Dylan anymore. He was very famous, 60s, 70s, 80s. So in 1962, there was a big crisis in the world called the Cuban Missile Crisis. I've talked about this before. And the thing is, the impact was largely subtle all around the world. Everyone was aware of it. It was like, okay, we're going to have a nuclear war now, right? We were talking about it since the dropping of the A-bomb and the end of World War II in Japan. Everyone saw what happened. We all knew about that, right? So I grew up, dreaming about it as a kid, that, is it coming now? Is it coming now? So now, this was actually it. There was a confrontation between Russia and America around Cuba. They were putting atom bombs in there. And America found out about it, and we blockaded, and Russia was coming, and steaming, and this whole craziness, And so it could have happened at that time. It became this close. There were like 50 different times when it came this close. It's completely Krishna's arrangement that we're just sitting here, and we haven't all expired, and you guys were born. So why? Why is this? Because people have completely forgotten about God, about Krishna, about who's really controlling things. And this demoniac mentality, which we read about in chapter 16, that there is no God. Asatyam apatishtam te jagadahu anisharam. This is one of the first verses describing the demonic mentality. There's no ultimate truth. There's no foundation of everything. It's just natural forces moving, which we can control, learn how to control. Jagadahu anisharam. It's not that they're agnostic. It's important to understand the difference. Agnostic means I don't know. Now a militant agnostic will say no one can know, but at least they'll say I don't know, that whether there's a God or not. But the atheist, which is described in this verse, it says Jagadha anisharam. They declared to the world that there's no Ishvara, that there's no God. They're militantly atheistic. And they write books and they insist that God cannot be taught in the schools. Prabhupada was very disappointed that India had become secular, right? I think it was an effort to try to avoid conflict between the Muslims and the Indians. Anyway, it's a secular nation. No, you can't teach any Bhagavad Gita in the schools. Whereas in America, you don't have a state religion, but you have freedom of religion, and that's a big reason why we were allowed. Prabhupada was allowed to practice. He wasn't allowed to do it in Russia, although he initiated one devotee who became seed. But Harinam in Russia, not during the Soviet times. Everything underground, but to speak of China. So this militant atheism, or is part of what it means to live in the society of demons. And yet Krishna consciousness, we still have to practice. Here we're lucky we can practice them freely. But here, this is very practical. These two verses, and the 15 we'll read in a minute. How can we eat? What's actually the way in which we subsist in this world? And Prabhupada keeps using this word sufficiently. Now you should know that sufficiently, what does it say? Sufficient rain, right? Yeah. That sufficient rain means abundant rain. The word sufficiently for us means enough. Just enough. It can be sufficient. No. You look it up in the Oxford English Dictionary, and there's one of the meanings is abundant, lavish, a lot. And Prabhupada would often use it that way. So you have to watch if you read Prabhupada's books. So we need enough rain. We need a lot of rain at the right times, and not too much, not too little. So there needs to be a controller. Just like we had in Indra, this whole temple. This is commemorating the Govardhan Puja. One of the purposes of that, there were different. Krishna is expert. That means he can do a lot of things at the same time. So one of the things he did with that Govardhan Leela was he showed how you don't have to worship any demigod. Whatever the demigods can give you, I'm giving them the ability to give it to you. That's what he says in chapter 9. Is that there's no point worshiping demigods separately, when if you worship me, you'll get what you need and you'll develop love for me and take you back to Godhead. But if you just worship the demigods so you get enough rain for agriculture, or maybe you go to heaven, you're completely stuck within the material world. Maybe you'll enjoy a little bit on heaven for some time. But then you got to come back down here, you start all over, you don't make any progress. Gadagatum kama kama labante. This is the line in the 9th chapter. By trying to fulfill your material desires, by worshiping the demigods, you just go and come. You go, if you do it right, you go to heaven and come back down. So what's the point? But if you worship me, patam pusham palam toyam, the most easy way, chant Hare Krishna. You come back to Godhead and get free from your imprisonment within the material world. If you have faith and you understand how things are really working from Bhagavad Gita, it's what we call a no-brainer. What are you going to strive for? That's the whole question in our life. What are we going to strive for? Everyone's working hard, who has somewhat together, who haven't already, what are you going to strive for, Michael? It's a no-brainer, isn't it? Yeah, a no-brainer. It doesn't I don't know, should I strive for eternal life and unending, unlimited happiness? Or should I strive for this little flickering happiness and a whole lot of pain? Let's see. But the problem is people don't have faith. Maya's job is to cover one of her jobs, thankless task, Prabhupada said. She's a servant of Krishna. But to test the conditioned souls, are they really wanting to come back to Godhead? Do they understand, why they're suffering and how they can get rid of it? So she covers our knowledge. As soon as you want to try to enjoy materially separate from Krishna, then she'll cover your original knowledge and give you all kinds of ways that you think you can enjoy. And even, then you come to the human form, when you have all kinds of varieties of things, and try to, in lower animal forms, it's the same thing, but they're kind of programmed in. Their brains are a little, simple. Okay, we have a question. You need the mic, which is right there. Oh, you have a question?
Yeah.
All right. So then he had his question, but he just was so shy he didn't raise his hand. But then you're next. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. I just had a quick question. You mentioned earlier about, how Krishna, he controls everything, the demigods, and they provide us all with all his things. But then you see with like the material nature, I guess, with people, they try to come up with all these new ways to, make it sustainable, renewable energy or solar panels, this and that. But I mean, it's only for us to kind of continue our enjoyment here, actually.
Of course.
It's like, to produce more, alcohol, or something
it's all in the modes of nature. This is the thing.
Yeah.
So you find people who are a little bit more in the mode of goodness, they have they understand, and it's perfectly logical. Oh, we can't keep burning all this fossil fuel. Look, it's happening. It's happening. It's coming. It's getting hotter and hotter. We can see the results: the storms, the tornadoes, the floods, even the earthquakes, and so we have to dial it back. We have a program done it. But you're dealing with the lower modes. Someone, the big businesses are saying, well, how can we work just like Exxon? They knew back in the 80s about it. They had their own scientists. They're on the forefront of it. They knew that this was happening. So what was their response? All right, we got to change our business plan and try. No. What they said, well, we have to figure out how we can convince the people that it's not happening. And so we'll pay the scientists to say this and write this paper. We have all the money, right? In other words, demonic. We'll destroy the earth as long as we have the profit. What's the bottom line? That's the demons. Enjoy now, and the heck with tomorrow. Grandkids, who cares? I mean, we can enjoy it. That's the problem. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, to speak to what you just said, I mean, they're achieving their goal, and their goal is money and profit.
The
so
bottom
they're
line,
doing the right
immediate.
thing.
Yeah.
They're achieving their goals.
Yeah,
So
makes perfect sense.
There's no mystery as to why, that industry goes on, and the cigarette industry did what they did. It's common sense.
Yeah.
Now, what Saul was saying also made me think about something like, so sustainable energy, and I'm no expert on that, but even sustainable energy, how long is it? So if it's 500 years, it's still, it's not anything compared to eternity or forever.
Of course
right?
not.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
So instead of, fossil fuel now batteries, well, now they're saying they don't know these car batteries. Oh, this is going to be the great savior of the planet. They have no clue how to dispose of all these car batteries.
Yeah.
Where are they going? To Mars? So they're going to
Well,
destroy
they have the
another
same
planet?
problem with the
Instead of ours, they're gonna destroy a new planet.
nuclear energy generation.
Right.
We're sitting on a time bomb here. Up
Yes.
in I always forget the name. Where were they? We had this. Just up the road here, up on I-5 on the beach. They have these two things. Yeah, nuclear. You didn't know about nuclear? It's been decommissioned, but what do you do with the waste? The waste is right there on the beach. It's been buried. Suppose it's a tsunami. So this will all be uninhabitable. Yeah. So the point is, it's as I've quoted this verse 100 times. Prahlad Maharaj says, he says, how does it start? I forget it, but he's saying that duk aushadam tadapi dukkam, that we live in a world. I'm burning in the fire of lamentation, caused by the things which are dear to me are being ripped away forcibly, like my health, my body. The things which are abominable to me are being forced upon me. You see, and this is a universal, all species of life, not to speak of human beings. But in human life, we have what we call duk aushadam, remedies for the dukkha, for the misery. You see, just like, okay, we don't have enough energy, we don't want to burn any fossil fuels, so we'll build these nuclear reactors all over the country. In France, they have all over every place. Yeah. Create the heat, and they boil the water, the steam, run the turbines, get the electricity. Okay, well, that's a solution. We're not adding any carbon to the great. But then at a certain point, first of all, you have the problem with social instability. Chernobyl, they attacked Chernobyl. The Russians bombed it. Chernobyl, where they have all these, that blew up already, created huge havoc. And now there's all of this spent fuel there also, and they created, They didn't know what they were doing. They were digging these trenches, and they all got contaminated. It's insane. So the dukkha aushadam creates more dukkha. On the material, there's no solution to material problems that are material solutions. There has to be a spiritual solution to the material problems. Otherwise, you get deeper and deeper and deeper into the complexities of the material energy, and you're not getting any closer to Krishna. Yes, Michael.
So back to my question, which was what you were talking about before, the questions that we asked, as far as like Maya is so tricky and giving us gratification versus,
Yeah, because
I mean,
we want it.
isn't that, for me, that is the struggle. It's a struggle between instant gratification, which is Maya. There is a gratification that occurs. I go buy
Yes.
something, and there's gratification right there. Or, now there is gratification in Krishna consciousness, instant. There's a calmness, serenity and knowledge and so on and so forth. But the real goal is
Yes.
After we're done this incarnation,
And
right?
yes.
So that for me is the struggle of saying this instant gratification is very intoxicating, obviously, and there's so much of it. To give all that up, if I could get it right now, like instant, that's easy. But to know that, well, it could be get hit by a car when I leave. But my mind's not telling me that, right? My mind's telling me it's going to be in 30, 40, 50 years is when I'm going to.
Well, this is. I think you have
so
a
how does
mistake.
this
You have a mistake. That's a
Okay.
mistake. That's a mistake. It doesn't have to be in 40, 50 years. In Krishna consciousness, if you do it right, then you'll be experiencing the happiness even tomorrow, or depending on your surrender and your focus and everything. But if we try to say, well, it's going to take this long, then the temptations of the immediate gratification can be too strong.
That's nice. So I acknowledge what you're saying, of course. But
but you didn't say
the
that.
idea of eternally being at Krishna's feet,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to happen today, is it?
No.
Okay,
No.
that's what I'm talking. The ultimate.
But
That's, I guess, where
the point, Michael, is that if you practice Krishna consciousness strictly now, yes, there's tapasya. There's no question about it. There has to be self-restraint, and there has to be redirection. You have to say no, and then to Maya, and yes to Krishna. And that's sometimes difficult. It often is very difficult, and but the rewards can be felt quickly, within a matter of weeks or months. That the first reward is that the allurement of Maya becomes less. It's just not there anymore. In other words, it's much weaker, and you can much easily handle it. Yeah, you're getting the higher taste, and that higher taste increases. Ruchi becomes a sakti, actual attraction to Krishna, and you begin to really experience the happiness of Krishna consciousness. Or first, the peace of not being, of your mind, pulling and gritting your teeth, and it becomes much more naturally becoming habituated to do the right thing. So that's a very important platform to come to. It's not perfection yet, but it's something you can build on, and it gives you a chance to have regulation and to get into a routine that is steady, and you're not going to be hurt by it. All right, it's a little late. Okay, we have another question over here. This is great. We'll get to this 15 tomorrow. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, do you think like the earth is gonna clean up like in so many years, whatever hundreds of years? Because as I know from Gita and different books,
You need to hold it closer.
like as I know from Bhagavad Gita and different books, like the life cycle goes on. So again, the Satyuga and Dwapar Yuga is
Yeah.
gonna come, which was really clean place to stay on earth, right? So do you think like the microplastic right now, which we have, it's
Let me
gonna clean up?
look in the index here. It says. What's already happened, or let's say what already hasn't happened, is totally miraculous. There's a site. I don't want to. There's a site listing all of the near misses. You know how we almost destroyed the planet with the atom bombs and hydrogen bombs, and this event, that event. One fellow is sitting in, you know, I don't know, it's the 70s sometime, and the Russians had their radar, you know, and one guy's sitting in there, and it looks like America's attacking. There's all of these missiles coming up, and so his job was simply to call it in to the central military office, and they would respond, which means they would start shooting the missiles. And he knew that, and so he said, wait, this can't be right. You know, first of all, if America's attacking, why would they only throw 4 missiles or 5? You know, that was suspicious. So he didn't call it in, and it turned out to be a computer glitch, you know. And that's how close. This guy got a reward recently in America. You know, he's 80 years old now, you know, the man who saved the world, you know. But this is what they've created, a tripwire, you know. So how did that not happen? Only Krishna, you know, intervention. So that Prabhupada could come to America and start the Hare Krishna movement and, you know, things. But to try to predict how it's going to survive when there's all these many ways that are converging how it's not going to survive, I don't know. I mean, Krishna can do anything. I mean, the best way is if, you know, Putin. It's not an accident that his name is very close to a certain demon. Have you noticed that? Putin. Anyway, now watch. They're going to go after me now. Watch. But who am I? This is so. The thing is, everyone is saying, "Oh my God!" You know, he's got all these nuclear weapons at his disposal, and he's pretty nuts. This is what we're afraid of. So we need an intervention. Krishna has to, you know, how we'll do it. Maybe, you know, I mean, Prabhupada performed a miracle, went to Moscow, initiated one devotee, who then started distributing books. He would make them himself, and he would go out and graduate. And this is, you know, the whole huge Russian yatra. I visited there twice in my career. Wonderful devotees, you know. Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. There's many thousands there, and even in Ukraine, I think there's more. But so Krishna can do anything. I don't see how it can happen. We look doomed, you know. But for personally, all we can do is chant as much as possible and try to give Krishna consciousness as much as possible. What is that? There's this one, and then we'll end with this. There's when Lord Chaitanya was in Navadvip, and he had Nityananda and Haridas going out and preach, you know, and they encountered Jagai Madai, which is so he gave them one mantra to tell the people. Very simple. Bolo Krishna, Bodho Krishna, Koro Krika Shika. So I put that into English. It says, just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions, and to others them impart. And if we can just follow this instruction ourselves, this is the best thing we can do for ourselves, for our loved ones, and for the whole world. And this is the best way, you know. That no one can predict how this is all going to play out. But that's the safest place to be, is to be hanging on to Krishna's lotus feet, trying to serve him, glorify him, and give Krishna consciousness to as many people as possible. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari.